audio coming through, guys? Looks like everybody in Zoom is kind of shy this morning. That's all right. I just had my coffee, so I'm with you there. All right, let me know if there are any problems going through Zoom, and I will see what I can do to remedy that if that is a problem. Okay, let's get started. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Camille. I've been working here at Chenard's for the last 5 years, doing beekeeping for most of that. I don't know if you guys in Zoom can see it, but I'm wearing my special Varroa t-shirt today. Life-size version of Varroa mite, but on human scale. So if you can imagine, me being a honeybee is a pretty significant size right there. So let's get into managing honeybee health, queens, pests, and diseases that you may see in your colony throughout the year. So basic summary of what we're going to go over today. We're going to look at hive inspection frequency. How often should you be in? What should you be seeing? We're going to look at queen status, not necessarily finding the queen herself, but understanding how the queen is doing without actually finding her. We're going to be discussing drone comb, benefits of removing drone comb, observing drone comb, and using whole drone frames. We'll be looking at robbing pressure from honeybees and other sources. And the big chunk of this class is going to be disease recognition and management of those diseases, focusing on chalk brood, American and European fall brood, indicator viruses that will let you know that there's something wrong in the colony, nosema, dysentery, which are very similar just visually, and we're finally going over Varroa destructor, which everyone should be familiar with at this point, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into how to test for this and how to treat for this and when to treat for it. So how often should we be inspecting? You should be inspecting as often as you're comfortable with, keeping on a schedule. If you don't keep to a schedule, you're going to find, oh gosh, it's been 3 weeks. What's happened? You're going to go into your colony, you're going to find something's terribly wrong and you won't know why because it's far enough in that the original source isn't obvious. So go in once every 14 days. This is a pretty good interval for several reasons. It doesn't take over your life for one, once every 14 days. Also, it takes a queen bee 16 days to hatch from an egg to an adult queen bee. So this is also for swarm control. If you're going in once every 14 days, you have 2 opportunities to catch forming queen cells and to remove those and do your swarm prevention techniques. You should be inspecting not only once every 14 days, but once every 14 days during good weather. If you are going out there, it's dumping rain and it's 45 degrees, going into the colony is going to do a lot more damage than good. So you should have fair temperatures. 55 degrees is great for flying weather, so it should be 55 and above. In wintertime, that's really difficult. So I say you can go down to 50 degrees, but anything lower than that, just stay out of the colony. Be cautious of wind as well. Sometimes it's easier to go and inspect your colony in the mornings when it's calm. Afternoons, especially around here, can be quite windy, and that's going to affect the mood of your colony, and it's going to just make your life a lot harder if you're going to inspect in the afternoon. It's possible. I do it all the time because I never have time in the mornings, but it is generally easier to inspect in the mornings as soon as it gets above 55 degrees. I've got a couple things over here in the corner that you might look at. This is up right here up at the top, an uncapped queen cup or swarm cell. Upon closer inspection, you can't really tell in here. It's completely empty. There's no royal jelly, there's no larva, there's no egg. This is totally fine. If you know where this is and you inspect it once every 2 weeks, you can keep an eye on this and see like, oh, are they filling it? Are they leaving it all alone? What's going on here? You can also choose to remove that queen cup and just continue removing queen cups as you do your inspections. This is a form of swarm control. You don't want them raising another queen. As soon as the other virgin queen hatches, 60% of your colony is gone. So they will want to swarm if they have virgin queens hatching out. Down below here, this is a slightly different queen cell. You'll notice that instead of being on the bottom of the frame, this is on the side of the frame where usually the workers are raised. In this case, this usually tells you there's something wrong with the queen. This is an emergency cell or a supersedure cell. What has happened here is the queen has either lost a lot of her pheromones, she hasn't been properly mated, maybe she was rolled during an inspection. The bees have realized there's no queen pheromone, but we still have some larvae, and they have altered a worker larva into a queen cell in hopes that they will save their colony and create a new queen. If you see this, depending on time of year, you can either allow it to hatch and allow the colony to requeen itself, like in early spring, this is an okay time to do that. Or you can remove the supersedure cells, make sure there are none in the colony whatsoever, and you can requeen with a mated queen, which happens a lot faster. This is important to do in fall when you know that you need the colony population. During an inspection, what are we looking for? So basically, the things you're looking for are queen, worker, and drone health, resource availability, hive capacity, weather conditions, and robbing activity. When you're looking for queen health, you're looking for a solid brood pattern. You should see multiple different ages. You should see eggs. You should see young larvae. You should see capped brood that is actively hatching out as well. Count your brood frames and understand what you should be seeing for time of year. It's really great to take notes and reflect on the notes that you took from the previous year. Oh, my colony was laying like crazy last year. I had eight frames of brood in April versus this year I only have 6. This is still a good number. Maybe this isn't a good number. You just kind of have to understand what you've seen before, what you see now, and be comfortable with, is this what I'm looking for, or should I requeen? If you're seeing 2 frames of brood right now, you might be in trouble. Worker health. Are your workers active and alert? Do they all look healthy? You have no deformed wing virus or things that we call K-wing. If you see honeybees have 2 sets of wings. So K-wing is when the back wings are forked up, and it kind of looks like a funky looking dragonfly. You see that, you know that there's a problem going on as well. You shouldn't see any moths, beetles, foreign larvae, or ants in active comb. This means that the honeybees are struggling. They won't allow foreign entities inside their colony in a healthy colony. Look at the brood as well. Brood color is really important. You should see nice, pure white brood. If you see off color, yellow, black, brown brood, you know that you've got a problem. Drone health. This is something that is being researched more and more, but there's not a whole lot out there at the moment. The best thing you can do is just kind of take notes about things that you see with drone health. You can take a look at drones, see if you see any mites on them. Take a look at how much drone comb is in your colony and probably remove most or all of it. So resource availability, understand when your nectar flows are happening. We're just finishing up on the vine maple, the big leaf maple nectar flow. A lot of the maples have been blooming. The bees have been bringing in lots of nectar. So really good honey for those of you who actually want to harvest it. But take a look and see how much is coming in. Lift your hive every time and go, hey, it feels lighter than last time. They've been consuming resources. It feels way heavier than last time. We're looking good. We might need to add a box. Hive capacity is what I'm leading into here. Are the bees running out of room? Are there enough workers to maintain the colony? If you open up your box and there's so many bees you can't put it back together again, chances are you're going to have to add another box to give them more space to expand. If they run out of room, they're naturally going to want to swarm, split the colony apart, and go someplace else. Consider weather conditions too. Weather conditions can tell you if you need to feed more, if you need to put extra wind blocks on or anything like that. If it's been excessively rainy, last spring we had a crazy rainy season. This spring has been really nice and dry. So keep an eye on weather trends year to year. Really dry, really flowery, your bees are going to be bringing in nectar like crazy. If it's super, super wet, they can't fly, they can't bring resources in, you're going to have to feed them more. Same goes for extreme heat waves. If you're seeing triple digits, all of the flowers are going to have their nectaries dry out. Resources are going to become very difficult to come by, and you're going to have to feed that colony quite a bit more during times like that. Robbing activity. You can tell what's going on as far as robbing just by looking at the entrance to the hive without even getting into it. I usually sit at the entrance to my colony for 2 or 3 minutes before I actually open up, just to see what everybody looks like. How many bees are coming in with pollen pants on? Are there any scuffles at the front? Are there any scratches at the front? We're going to get into robbing activity quite a bit more later, but it is not limited just to bee on bee activity. When you're doing your inspections, it's important to know why the frames look how they look. There are different colors of frames, different ages of frames, and different things you can tell about them just on offhand look. So on the far side here, you're seeing nice white comb. This is brand new comb. It was probably formed a couple of days to a week before the photo here. All of your brand new white wax comes directly from the bees. They mix it up with a little bit of saliva. They put it into your foundation, and then suddenly you've got all these beautiful white cells coming up. This is wonderful to see, and this is the time of year you're going to be seeing it. Your young bees are actively building wax right now. In the fall, you're going to have very little wax buildup. So understand that if you want to get extra frames drawn, like your honey frames, for instance, you want to get those in right now. Swap a couple frames in and out, get a couple frames drawn. You can store the wax later, but you want to get as much comb drawn as possible in the spring when they're actually drawing out the wax. The middle photo here, the wax is still fairly new, but you'll see that it's become discolored. Foragers are actively coming onto this comb. This is a resource comb right here. So you see a lot of pollen and bee bread here in the center. You see some nectar here in the top. You can tell because it's just kind of wet and glistening. This will be naturally more yellow because the workers are dragging all of this resource through, and they're going to be dropping pollen. They're going to be walking over the comb. They're going to be making it kind of dirty, but it's not going to be nearly the color as the far right over here. This is your brood comb, and it's okay for brood comb to be dark or brown or even black. That's totally fine. The age of the comb does make a difference after a while. Your brood comb should be replaced about once every 3 years. So I like to cycle a couple of frames per year and just kind of make sure that that continues going. The color is not an issue here. What is an issue is that when young bees hatch out, they leave little bits of pupal casings behind them. And the workers can't quite reach all the way to the bottom. So what happens is the cells become shallower and shallower and shallower. And eventually they're so shallow that the queen can no longer lay in them. So they become basically useless and need to be removed after a couple years. What you should be seeing in a healthy hive, in contrast to what we'll be going over later, your outer frames should all be resource frames. You're going to be seeing lots of nectar, lots of capped honey, lots of pollen in these frames. These are all they should be resource frames. Your intermediate frames, you'll see the edge of the brood sphere, kind of difficult to make sense of at first. You've got a big rectangle box, but you've actually got a circle of bees inside. So as you see the outer frames, you're going to see a little band of brood, a little band of pollen, and a little band of nectar or honey as well. These center frames should all be the heart of your brood sphere. They should be multiple ages of honeybee brood. You should see capped brood like the top photo here. You should see young uncapped brood that are under 10 days old, like in the bottom photo here as well. And if you look really closely, I think I've got a picture coming up kind of soon. You'll see a bunch of older larvae here as they start to stand up on end. They're nearing that 10-day. They're capped at 10 days. So you go younger, 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 and suddenly you're seeing these tiny little larvae. Keep going, and then you'll find the eggs. If you're just looking for eggs, you'll never find them. So it's important to find the older larvae and work backwards until you finally start seeing them. You kind of know where to look at that point. So queen status, how to spot a failing queen. There are a lot of signs, and it's important to go in regularly so that you don't get to the point where you're having laying workers. Laying workers are really difficult to remedy. It's possible, but you really don't want to get to this stage. So how to spot a failing queen. When you're going through, you're looking for eggs, you're not finding eggs. That's your first big indicator that the queen is absent, or that her spermatheca has failed and she can no longer lay. So absence of eggs, like I said, can be difficult to spot. You can look for the older larvae and work backwards. If you're having trouble seeing that, maybe the comb is really dark, try angling your frame in the sunshine, and that can really help too. If eggs are absent, eggs turn into larvae at day 3. So you know if eggs are absolutely absent, your queen has not been there for at least 3 days. We also know that worker brood is capped at 10 days. If you see no capped brood at all, that's definitely not a good thing. If you see no uncapped larva, it's been at least 10 days since the queen's been in there. You probably hear really high-pitched buzzing from your bees, which is different from a healthy hive. The tone will actually change in honeybees when they are queenless, and you can hear it. I had a swarm move in a couple of days ago, and they're absolutely queenless. I got in there and I'm like, they're not aggressive, but they don't sound right. Went through, sure enough, they're queenless. So you can actually hear the difference when the queen is missing too. Poor brood pattern. It's important when you're looking for brood pattern that you're not looking at capped cells, because capped cells, they can be anywhere from 10 days to 21 days old, which means they're probably hatching at that point. So if you're looking at a nice frame of capped brood and you're like, oh gosh, it's shotgunned like crazy, there's a whole bunch of holes, it's fine, they're hatching. You should be looking at uncapped brood. If you're looking at uncapped brood, there's a couple of holes, then you're like, okay, there's something kind of weird happening here. The queen should lay in every single cell on a frame. So look at the uncapped brood. You should see a good solid pattern. Excess drone comb can also indicate a failing queen. She may not have as much sperm left over. She requires sperm to make a worker. She does not require sperm to make a drone. So if she's laying only drone, the sperm may have dried up. She may have been poorly mated, and she's only actually capable of laying drone at that point. But excess drone could also just mean the natural swarming behavior. This time of year, the drone population is increasing dramatically. Your drones can be up to, I think, 10 to 15% of the colony during peak season. Laying workers, I actually have a photo right here of laying workers. It becomes very obvious, especially in newer comb, when the queen has been absent for an extended period of time and there are no eggs at all to create a supersedure cell on a virgin queen. Sometimes the workers will actually develop their ovaries and they'll begin laying themselves. Obviously, they've never gone out, they've never mated, they can't lay any worker eggs. So they're going to lay exclusively drone, and they're not very good at laying eggs. So they're going to be laying a ton of eggs, 6 to 20 eggs per cell. And they can't really reach the bottom usually. So you'll see them kind of clustered on the sides of the cells too. So there are a lot of different indicators to tell that you have laying workers. It's difficult to rectify this, and you shouldn't ever see this if you're doing your regular hive inspections, luckily. So nobody here has to worry about laying workers. But if you do find yourself in a situation where you do have laying workers, there are a couple things that you can do. The thing that I have tried before when I saw this actually, and it did help, I was able to requeen after I did this. Laying workers, like your regular queen bees, will take on a lot of weight, and it'll be difficult, if not impossible, for them to fly. So what you do is you take, you know you don't have a queen bee in there, so you're not worried about it. You take your brood nest, all of that drone comb, and you go 50, 60 feet away, and you shake all of the bees out. And then you put all of your comb back. Your foragers are going to come straight back, and they're going to continue doing what they've always been doing. Your laying workers are going to be stranded, and they're not going to be able to fly back to the colony. So after, see, 15 minutes for queen pheromone to fade, I usually wait 24 hours, make sure everyone's like, oh, we're absolutely queenless again. Requeen, and then hope that that queen actually does take. Overly aggressive colony can also indicate queen loss. If a queen has died, there are no new bees to replace, no queen pheromones circulating. The colony begins to realize that they're doomed, and they're not super happy when they know they're going to die. So if they're attacking you 50, 60 feet away from the hive, that's a big indicator that something is seriously wrong. Get into the colony, see if there's any brood. If there's no brood, requeen immediately. At the point that they're getting aggressive like that, they will either accept a new queen right away, or if they're truly hopelessly queenless, they'll try and ball that queen and kill her. At that point, if they're not accepting a new queen, the only thing you really can do is euthanize the hive. There's a lot of different ways of doing that. It's not something that's super great to talk about or super fun. You can open the lid if you're in a rural area, you're not really worried about neighbors or anything. They'll be gone by the morning. If you are worried about neighbors, you've got an aggressive colony, you needed to go away right now, you can do what's called solarizing them. Take some black plastic hefty bags, throw the entire box in there, seal it up on a hot day. 15 minutes later, problem's over. Not something I like to talk about, but it's something that may be necessary if something happens, you're out of town, you come back and you've got this horrible thing. I've heard that soapy water also helps, but that kind of ruins your frames. I prefer the solarization method if I were going to do something like that. So just because you think there's a failing queen doesn't necessarily mean there is one. There are a couple of situations here that look like your queen is failing when actually other factors are to blame. So I was talking about your old black brood frames. Some of your frames are simply too shallow to lay if they've been in there for a really long time. If you're a new beekeeper, you don't have to worry about this. You've got all new frames, everything's great for a couple of years. But if you've had the same frames for 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years, chances are you're gonna have a bunch of nasty frames that are too shallow for the queen to lay in. And she'll just be walking around going, I don't know, guys, I need some new comb. And if she can't lay for long enough, she'll fly the coop and you will have all of your bees abscond. So replace your brood frames every couple of brood frames every year. Keep them rotating. Added bonus, when they draw that new comb out on a black surface, it's going to be really easy to spot those eggs. So it makes your inspections easier. It makes the queen's job easier, and you've got brand new, nice looking frames too. Not enough space. So sometimes honeybees work a little bit too hard. If there is a massive nectar flow and a large colony, all of your workers are going to be going out and bringing in all of that nectar. What happens sometimes is if you don't give them enough space, you don't continue throwing honey supers on there, there's space in brood nests. Your queen's continually laying and brood is continually hatching. As the brood hatches, the worker bees are going to come in and go, hey, my honey super's full, and they're going to backfill what the queen has left behind. Suddenly you have a box just full of honey, and you have the queen going, I don't have anywhere to lay, and she's just walking around taking a vacation. So it looks like you have a failing queen, but really you are in a honey-bound situation. This is pretty easy to rectify. Honeybees always want to be busy, and if you've got a lot of workers coming in with a lot of nectar and pollen, they're going to be just jumping at the chance to fill in new frames. So toss an extra honey box on there and toss a bunch of extra frames in there, get them drawing new frames out, start shuffling some frames around. If you've got a honey super on already and you're adding a new honey super, chances are they're going to be like, well, this is my honey super. I want to be in this honey super. So change a couple frames around. It's called checkerboarding. You'll do drawn frame, undrawn frame, drawn frame, undrawn frame. And that's going to really increase the likelihood that they're going to start working on those undrawn frames for you. Hatching brood, also talked about this briefly before. Frame of capped brood can look uneven, shotgunned, maybe like, oh gosh, my queen is failing. But like I said before, the capped brood, it's hard to tell if it's been capped for 10 days or if it's been capped for 21 days. So this shotgunning that you see on the capped brood may just be brood that is emerging and is perfectly normal. How to fix a failing queen. Sorry, I guess I've got my format a little bit messed up on here. I hope everybody can still read that. So 2 ways to requeen depending on seasonality and colony strength. If you have a very, very strong colony and it's really early in the season, you've got lots of time, lots of nectar flow left, you can allow the colony to requeen itself, but it does take time. So if you're seeing supersedure cells, you're seeing swarm cells that are being filled and you don't have a queen around, you can allow them to requeen themselves, but it takes the queen, like I said, 16 days to hatch. And then after that, it takes her about 6 days to reach maturity, get her flight muscles all ready to go. And then she leaves on her mating flight. And she's out partying for about 2 weeks before she actually comes back. It takes her about 3 days to calm down, get over her hangover, and start laying. So this isn't guaranteed. It is a risk. Weather can become a problem. If it's raining when she's supposed to be mating, you're going to have a poorly mated queen who's not going to be able to lay well. You're going to have to replace her later anyway. Birds like honeybees, so sometimes predation can be an issue. Allowing the colony to requeen itself is possible, but it's not always something you want to do. So you can requeen with a mated queen instead. If you take a mated queen home in a cage, you put a sugar plug in, it takes her about 3 days to release and she immediately begins laying. So if you're in a situation where you have a weaker colony, you have a colony that is queenless in late fall, you need to get a mated queen so that you can get more brood light immediately. And it's a lot safer bet than trying to let them requeen themselves anyhow, because you've got that queen in your pocket. You know she's safe, you know she's healthy, you know she's mated. So $45 versus let's wait a month and we'll see. I'll go for the $45 any day. Requeening considerations. When you requeen, if you think you have queen problems, be absolutely sure that your old queen is gone. Go through your entire hive, even if it's going to take you 15, 20, 30 minutes. Go through, make sure she's not in there. If you do find her, pinch her. The queen pheromone must be absolutely absent for them to accept a brand new queen. Even if they've got a really crummy queen in there, you put a nice new laying queen in, they're going to kill that new queen because that's not their queen. That's not the pheromone that they're used to. In the absence of queen pheromone, they will accept a new queen. So pinch the queen, wait overnight, and then install a new queen in this case. After you've installed the new queen, they may still try and create new queens. Just go in, make sure you're looking at all queen cells, remove all queen cells, remove any supersedure cells. You want one queen in there, and that's the queen that you install. Something kind of fun that I was looking at this morning, actually. I didn't notice until just now. The photo on the bottom here, this was swarm prevention that happened a little bit too late. A couple of years ago, I had a swarm cell that was about ready to hatch, and I actually hatched this queen bee in a mason jar. Somehow the colony did not swarm. I caught her probably 20 minutes before she hatched. I don't know how they didn't swarm. Anyway, I watched her hatch in this mason jar and I noticed that her thorax is fuzzy, just like all the worker bees. Worker bees all have fuzzy thoraxes. When you're looking for the queen in a hive, she has a bare thorax. Usually it's just black and shiny. But a brand new queen bee has a bunch of hair on her thorax. My theory here is that the queen bee produces touch pheromone. Her retinue of worker bees that are always around feeding her, cleaning her, touching her, they will literally rub the hair off of her thorax. So it doesn't take very long. It's kind of an interesting observation I made this morning. They're so cute when they're young. Okay, so let's get into drone comb, much less cute. What is drone comb? Drone comb is simply the brood of male bees. It only occurs in modified cells. Drones are much larger than workers, so they need wider and taller cells. You'll notice that instead of the nice, even brood comb, you're going to have this bubbly kind of expanded brood comb. Once this is a drone brood, it will never again be worker brood because the workers are too small to fit in here. So the only thing that you can do for having excess drone comb in the colony is to scrape that out. You can replace entire frames, you can scrape little bits out and have them redraw it, but it's definitely a good idea to remove as much drone comb as possible. Drones are the main vector for varroa mites. It takes a worker bee 21 days to hatch. It takes a drone 24 days to hatch. In those extra few days, a foundress mite or the mother mite can raise an entire new family. So instead of raising one single female mite, she can raise up to 3. So naturally they gravitate to drones when they're accessible. Drone comb can occur anywhere in the hive, but it is most common in areas that are not super used. So you'll see them on the bottoms of your frames. You'll see them as burr comb at the tops of the frames. Anywhere where nice brood comb is not necessarily going to be. They pretty regularly, if you throw in a foundationless frame, they'll fill it out with all drone comb too. But on a foundationless frame, it's really easy to just cut that away, put that back. So excess drone comb Like I said, drones are a big problem for the colony. This photo over here has got to be a drone because a worker simply can't have that many varroa mites on them at this stage. This is far more mites than I am used to seeing on any drone too. So if you see this, you know you're in really deep trouble. Use your hive tool to scrape away small amounts of drone. If you see large amounts of drone, like an entire frame, replace that with a brand new frame, let them draw that out. And then you take that drone comb, throw it in the freezer for 3 days. Trust me, you want to do this. Not only does it kill all the varroa mites and all the drones, it also makes your job a lot easier and a lot less disgusting when you have to uncap them all. Take an uncapping scratcher, uncap everything. It's been in the freezer for 3 days, so everything there is dead. Put that straight back in the colony, and the honeybees will clean that out, remove it all, and then begin to use it again. That is if you want the drone comb there. A lot of beekeepers will use a controlled drone frame. You'll actually see the green drone frames right there with larger cells. Those are meant to have only drones on them. It's actually a form of mite control. When you're scraping your drone brood out though, keep in mind that bees don't like having all of their babies destroyed, even if they are drones. So use your smoker, smoke the area nice and well when you're removing it, because that will help to kind of suppress the smell and keep the workers calmer. This is an example of your drone frame here. They're always going to be plastic green frames. You can use foundationless comb. You can use whatever frame happens to have drone comb on it, but this drone frame is always a drone frame. So they're available for purchase and they're pretty easy to use. The thing about having drone frames is there is some amount of responsibility that goes with it. You know that drones start hatching out at 24 days. So you want to make sure to get there day 15 to 20 before they hatch and remove that. Because if you're not removing the drone comb before they hatch, you are taking a mite reduction technique and you're becoming a mite breeder instead. So it's really important that if you use these frames, you are removing them, you are destroying all of the brood in there. I think I actually already covered this frame in the last one. Positioning of the drone frame. So naturally in a honeybee colony, most of your worker brood is going to be dead center in the brood sphere. The drones are going to be on the outside of the brood sphere. The bees are smart. They understand that the workers are the most important part of the colony. The drones are for other colonies. They're for spreading the queen's genetic material, but it doesn't do any good for the colony if they're inside that colony. So the drones, being less important, are to the outsides of the brood sphere. So if for some reason it gets too cold, they aren't able to feed them as much, the drones are going to be the ones that die, not the workers. So when you're putting your drone frame in, you want it to be to the outer side of the brood sphere on either side.
Would you do just one or two?
I only use one drone comb. You can probably use two, that's fine as well. Just make sure you're really keeping up on removing that frame, getting rid of all the drone, and then replacing it. You're really only going to be using this as a spring method. The drones are going to be produced through the summer season, but towards fall, they're really going to stop producing drone. Towards the middle of fall, they're actually going to destroy all the drone, and it's going to be an all-female colony again for wintertime. So it's definitely a springtime or early summertime thing. Robbing pests. A strong, healthy colony of honeybees can actually withstand quite a bit of robbing. They are able to defend the colony fairly well, especially with small entrances. A weak colony is going to be much more susceptible to robbing pressure and robbing death. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure here. Big, happy colony, lots of food, we're all set. Small colony, maybe it swarmed, maybe it wasn't fed properly, it's going to be at serious risk of robbing pests. You're not usually too concerned about robbing this time of year in spring because resources are plentiful, everybody's out gathering all of their own things, they don't need to steal from anybody else. In late summer and fall, robbing season begins to come out. The heat is destroying nectaries and flowers. Resources are less available. And suddenly everyone goes to that really nice smelling honeycomb. They're like, hey, I could have some of that. So threats to honeybee hives. The Western yellowjacket is the primary robber and the biggest threat to colonies in fall. By the time that happens and you start seeing robbing activity, there's not too much you can do to suppress the yellowjacket colonies. So you're trapping them right now. The queens overwinter all alone. All of the workers are dead. So your yellowjacket queens overwinter in the soil or any protected area. You'll find them underneath outside tables. You'll find them all over the place. They are huge right now. They look like the biggest, fattest yellowjackets you've ever seen. But if you're trapping them right now, you're killing the queens, you're killing entire colonies. Versus in the fall, your trap is going to be totally full, but it's a drop in the bucket. Yellowjacket colonies can have up to 5,000 yellowjackets. So each queen you kill in spring saves 5,000. Let's see, other threats. Western yellowjackets, that's creeping me out. Let's move on to something else here. Other raiding honeybees. So this is actually a form of, they call it advanced foraging. There's no resources around. Hey, I've got a lot of resources in my hive. That gives me an idea. Other guys probably have a lot of resources too. And the honeybees will go to weaker colonies and they will actually start robbing from the weaker colonies to save themselves for winter. This isn't necessarily a good thing these days. It used to be great because then the weaker colonies went to the stronger colonies were able to overwinter. Now that Varroa destructor and all these other diseases are out there, the strong hive robbing from the weaker hive is weak for a reason. If they're overrun by Varroa mites, they have become a Varroa bomb. So they get robbed out by other honeybees. Other honeybees take all their Varroa into their strong hive. So even if you are treating you're continuing your integrated pest management, chances are your strong hive is robbing from a weaker hive in fall, and they're bringing in a ton of Varroa mites. So continue your treatments. Make sure even if you've got a really strong colony, you are treating for Varroa mites because they're bringing in outside sources here when they're raiding from other colonies. Small hive beetles aren't a huge thing in this part of Oregon. Very lucky here. I've had a couple of cases, but it's not huge. Hive beetles are actually drone mimics. They don't look anything like a drone, but they act like a drone. They will actually beg from the workers, hey, feed me, feed me, feed me. And they'll start trying to take all of the resources. They hide, especially in plastic frames, little grooves on the sides of plastic frames. And they can be trapped in oil traps. They can be trapped in sponge traps. Not super common around here, but keep an eye out if you see small black beetles in your hive. Skunks are actually quite a big threat to honeybees. Skunks are insectivores. They are also nocturnal, so they're not immediately obvious to the beekeeper, except for maybe the smell. If you check out the entrance to your colony during each of your hive inspections, just see how they are as they're coming and going. Are they agitated? Do they sound different? If you suspect that there's something robbing from them, check out the entrance and look for any scratch marks. What skunks do is in the middle of the night and they're hungry, they'll go up to a honeybee colony and they'll just start scratching at the entrance. They'll get the bees agitated and they'll get the guard bees coming out to try and attack. Well, they'll just open their mouth and eat them. So a skunk can kill a honeybee colony in just a couple of weeks. So it's important to either trap the skunk and move it out of the area or prevent skunks from coming in some other way. I've had a couple people use carpet tack boards and put it in front of the hives. And since skunks have really sensitive feet, they step on the spike board and they're gone. So that's a good way of keeping skunks away. You can try using motion sensing cameras too that flash a little red light. Kind of looks like predatory eyes looking at them. That can help also. In the case of bears, just hope they don't find your colony. You can try and elevate your colonies. You can try to use hot wire, but ultimately if a bear knows that your colony is there and it's hungry and it wants it, there's not really a whole lot you can do. So in the case that a bear finds your colony, the only thing you really can do is relocate. Wintertime robbing pests, when the colony is very cold and very, very tightly clustered together, sometimes they can get pests along the outsides of the frames, or especially if you're storing frames in your garage, nothing's actually protecting them. You need to worry about wax moths, you need to worry about mice, and you need to worry about ants. And there's a variety of things you can do for all of these. Mouse guards allow honeybees to fly through, but are small enough that mice cannot enter the colony. Mice don't necessarily want to hurt your bees. They don't necessarily want to rob their resources. They just want a nice warm place to overwinter. So they'll make a nest in the bottom of your colony. They'll rip up all the wax at the bottom and they'll just create a huge mess. Ants are more disgusting than anything else. You don't want them actually carrying their eggs into the colony, but they will try and eat all of the resources. A couple things you can do to prevent ants. You can lay sticky traps around the bottom. I usually use Vaseline around the legs of my hive stand and they can't get past. Some beekeepers will use water as well. So if you put your hive stand in little buckets of water, as long as you keep that water there, they can't get through the water and they can't get up. Benefits of ants not having wings. Wax moths, if you're storing comb, wax moths cannot reproduce in light. So have well-lit, well-ventilated area to have your stored combs. Honeybees will clean up a huge amount of mess. If you have stored combs that are full of mold, if you have stored combs that are just disgusting, like nasty green and white, really gross moldy frames, they'll clean those up if you put them back in the colony within a matter of days. Wax moths are the exception here. If you've got a bunch of slimy wax moth trails, if you've got a bunch of wax moth larvae and predation on your frames, chances are that you can just throw that frame away because the honeybees won't even touch it. So wax moths are probably the biggest predator of stored frames in your garage. Keep it well lit, keep it well ventilated. Wax moths can't live there. You can use a variety of wax moth preventatives as well, but I don't like using the chemical stuff because it's just disgusting. Effective, but expensive and kind of dangerous to use too. There are a couple of non-threatening critters in a honeybee hive that you may encounter, especially if you're using boxes where the honeybees aren't necessarily going to be a huge part of. So your all-season inner covers have got a couple holes at the top for ventilation. Spiders love those holes. Not a problem for the honeybees. They might kill one or two throughout the season, but mostly they're just more of a threat to arachnophobic beekeepers. I love insects. I love things with 6 legs. I draw the line at 8. Thrips and earwigs can be found in the honeybee colony too. They're not really a threat. The honeybees put up with them. You don't find them in the actual live nest, but you will find them in less populated areas of the comb, and that's totally fine. Pests and diseases. Sorry, I'm taking up a lot of everybody's time here. I seem to kind of just drone on. So bees are subject to several pests, parasites, fungi, and diseases. It's good to recognize warning signs during regular hive inspections, see that changes are happening and understand what you can do to prevent them from going full scale, treat them quickly. There are indicator diseases such as deformed wing virus that you can see on adult honeybees that tell you, hey, something's going on. They're closely associated with varroa mites. Varroa mites are vectors for deformed wing virus. So if you see deformed wing, you know you have a bad mite infestation you need to treat right away. Some diseases can be treated with cultural or chemical controls, requeening, miticides, that sort of thing. Others are more devastating and require disposal or incineration of infective equipment. In the case of American foul brood, you really should be incinerating your boxes, your frames. Throw out all of your frames, incinerate your boxes. Once they're seared, you can use them again. Some people will just throw them away anyhow, but the spores will last, I think, 60 to 80 years. So incineration is really the only thing you can do for American foul brood here. As with most of your organisms, a stressed colony is it's much more subject to infection. So keep them well fed, keep them well housed, keep a lot of space in there for them. Just make sure that they are as healthy as can be and they can stave off many of these diseases. Brood diseases are pretty easy to spot. Foul brood and chalk brood are pretty easy to recognize. You'll see that the colony is visually different than it should be. These are chalk brood cells right here. And honestly, looking at the brood, you can tell that it's chalk brood, but looking at the bottom board is much more obvious. You'll see chalk brood mummies all along the bottom board when you do have chalk brood in the colony. Adult diseases like your deformed wing virus, your nosema, and your dysentery usually go under the radar until they're really severe. If you're seeing fecal streaking all along the front of the hive, you know you've got a problem. So chalk brood. This is usually non-lethal. It usually fixes itself. Not always. Sometimes there is beekeeper intervention that needs to happen. This is typical after winter. As soon as the bees really start wanting to go out and forage again, their population begins to rise. So the symptoms are kind of off-white fungus covered larvae dead in the cells. You'll see cells that have been chewed by workers. This indicates that the brood below is dead and the worker has not had time to remove that and clean that cell. So there is an imbalance in age structure here. There are older bees from winter that are dying off. There's a bunch of new brood because the queen is like, all right, it's springtime, let's go. And suddenly there's not enough workers to take care of them. They can't keep up with all the cleaning. So sometimes in the case of a really bad chalk brood infestation, requeening can do a couple of things. Requeening with a hygienic queen can increase the hygiene behavior of all the workers. They'll continue to clean. They'll put more focus on, hey, there's chalk brood there, let's get rid of it. It also creates a brood break, which creates a little bit of extra time for all the workers who are completely overworked to go, oh my gosh, I'm caught up. Let's get cleaning. So excessively wet weather, too many bees stuck in the hive for too long, age imbalance can all cause this. Usually it will rectify itself, but like I said, requeening can definitely help in this case. Helping the bees out by cleaning as well. When you do your inspection, you see just nasty chalk brood all over the place. Take your boxes off, take your screen bottom board and just wipe it all away into a trash bin. Get rid of as many of the chalk brood mummies like you see here at the entrance as possible, and then you're helping them to clean up too. This is the really nasty one here. This is American foul brood. American foul brood usually affects older larvae. The main thing that you're looking for here is a horrible, horrible smell. You will be able to smell it right off the bat. You put your nose to the frame, you won't be able to do it. It's gross. Never smelled it before, but everyone I've talked to who has, like, there is no mistaking it. American foul brood is foul. You'll see sunken cappings here, like in this photo, you'll see cappings that have been marked for cleanup, but the workers have not had time to clean it up. American foul brood is particularly devastating because it is so difficult for the worker bees to clean it. The test to see whether or not you have it, other than your nose, of course, is called the ropey test. You take a little toothpick and you stir up the brood in your comb that you think is infected. And when you remove that toothpick, if the brood slides out about an inch, that's the ropey test. You know that it's sticky, it's gross, it's American foul brood. Other brood diseases, you won't be able to slide that brood out that far. So worker bees can't really clean it, so it just continues to spread. Incineration of frames and boxes is needed to assure infection does not spread to other hives. Any American foul brood in your apiary just needs to be completely destroyed. Get rid of the bees, get rid of the equipment. You can technically reuse the boxes after they've been incinerated. Most people choose not to. It's just a nasty, nasty disease. It's not very common here, luckily. I actually have never seen a case of American foul brood. Chemotherapy is something that can potentially treat it or prevent it. Some people will use terramycin as a preventative for American foul brood. Some people have tried to use it to actually rescue colonies with American foul brood. I have never used this. This is a product that can only be prescribed by a licensed veterinarian. I wish I had a little bit more practical experience there, but I think I'm going to have to ask everybody to delve into that on their own. So European foul brood. This is much, much more common than American foul brood. And it's pretty easy to distinguish too. Instead of that awful foul smell, you're looking for a really sour smell. Some people think it smells kind of like cat pee. So Mellicosis plutonius is the bacterium that causes this. Most colonies have spores in there. So this is something that only really affects colonies that have poor nutrition, that are weak for some reason or other. Chances are pretty good that you have it in your colony, but it is asymptomatic because the colony is healthy. Um, People who move their colonies for pollination often have a European foul brood. If they are on blueberries, on sunflowers, on almonds, there's really poor nutrition. There's not good nutrition coming in. If you're not supplementally feeding those colonies, they can succumb to European foul brood. Usually affects very young larvae, 3 to 4 days old. So you're actually looking at small larvae here instead of capped brood. They are twisted in their cells. They are often not developed enough to even have a tongue to stick out. And when you perform the ropey test, you don't get anything. It doesn't come out at all. The workers can clean this. It's possible for EFB infections to simply dissipate on their own if they aren't really bad. Requeening with more hygienic queen can help in this case as well. It creates a brood break. It allows workers to clean up the mess. Replacing comb like this with brand new comb can help. Like I said, the spores can last a very long time in both EFB and AFB. So grab brand new frames, grab a hygienic queen. You can recover from European foul brood. Make sure everybody's really, really well fed. Indicator viruses like deformed wing virus and acute bee paralysis virus are spread by varroa mites, and they are a red flag to beekeepers. This is another thing that you can look at before you even get into your colony. Hygienic workers are going to be kicking these bees out of the colony. They're of no use to the colony. They can't fly. You'll see deformed wing virus right at the entrance. So take a look at the entrance and go, all right, all healthy bees coming in, lots of pollen packs. That's awesome. You shouldn't see any confused, disoriented, or flightless bees at the entrance. Chances are, if you are seeing this, you have a really bad mite population and you should treat immediately. You're seeing this kind of thing, you're probably going to treat with a full dose of whatever you're using. Nosema and dysentery are typically associated with the early spring colonies that have overwintered, particularly wet winters where they have not been able to fly out of the hive to relieve themselves. So if you're sitting here holding it the whole time, really, really having to go number two, and you can't get out, your gut is going to have all sorts of issues happening with it. And nosema can take hold in this case. So something that I do to kind of help the bees be able to get out on cleansing flights is I will put just a piece of plywood on top of my colony with a big rock to hold it on. And this gives them probably a 12 to 18-inch flyway so that they can at least leave the hive briefly, relieve themselves, and go back in. So you'll see symptoms. Fecal streaking is the most common symptom of nosema and dysentery. You can't really tell the difference between nosema and dysentery unless you slice the bee open and you actually look at the midgut. The midgut is going to look quite a bit different in a healthy honeybee versus one infected with nosema. So you'll see crawling, trembling, disoriented workers at the entrance if this is a problem. Workers with K wings, so their back wing is kind of stuck up. Fecal streaking at the entrances. Good treatment. You want nice, clean food sources. You can treat with certain things. I don't have it on here. Fumidil B is the product that you would use to treat nosema and dysentery, and you just add that to the sugar syrup. Some people think that it is becoming less and less effective. Some people say it works all the time. It kind of depends on who you're talking to, whether or not they would use this product or not. But I'd say nosema and dysentery is something that usually you can recover from once the weather clears up, once you continue to feed with your clean feed. Ventilation is really important too. You don't want them to be stuck in there all wet and everything. Okay. So Varroa destructor, everybody knows it's a problem. Everybody knows that you can't have colonies overrun with Varroa, and it's probably the most common cause of colony collapse at this point. They're the largest single cause of bee mortality. It's important to learn to spot mites, how to sample for mite populations. I have a couple photos of mite boards right here. I usually leave my mite board in a colony for about 3 days. This gives enough time for all the things from the emerging bees to drop onto the board. You'll mostly see wax cappings from emerging brood. You'll see dropped pollen from worker bees who had accidents. You'll see all sorts of things. A couple of dead bees that haven't been properly removed from the colony. You'll see maybe a couple ants on this board, but you can get kind of a map of what you're looking at. You see in between all the frames, these lines on the mite board. Look where your brood nest is. That's where the most of the mites are going to be. The outsides of the brood nest where the drones are. This mite board was actually a wonderful mite board. I only found one mite on this board. Kind of rare actually. But they are incredibly small and they're incredibly difficult to detect. Use a flashlight when you're looking at this. You're going to see lots of different pollen granules and lots of different wax cappings and things. These are all going to be matte. Your varroa mites are shiny. So using a flashlight will help you to kind of illuminate the shiny mites. This picture down below, this is the top side of a mite. If you look at the bottom side of a mite, they have 8 legs and they're all facing forwards. Alcohol wash is usually more effective than the mite board, but the alcohol wash the last couple of years has been proven to be not as effective in the springtime. In the springtime, all of the mites are on the drones. When you're using a mite wash, you're typically taking young workers from the brood nest. So you're taking worker bees instead of drone bees and you're throwing your numbers off. In the fall, when most of the drones are gone, they're not producing as many drones, it's way more effective than even your mite board because all the mites are suddenly on your worker bees. You're testing your worker bees. You know what your actual mite levels are with your mite wash.
And just for those of you who can't see.
Your alcohol wash can come in a variety of ways. You can make your own with a mason jar, or you can use a Varroa Easy Check like this. The idea is you fill the bottom with isopropyl alcohol, and you scoop up about 3 cups of bees right in here. Or sorry, 1 cup of bees, which is about 300. Close this up, shake it for a while. All of the bees will die in there, but you're gonna have an average die-off in a day on a full-size colony, probably 300 to 500 bees. So this is less than an average die-off, and you're actually saving the honeybees because you understand what the mite levels are, you understand when or how much you need to treat. The honeybees are going to stay up here in the little sieve, and all of your mites are going to fall down below. So you'll be able to just look at the bottom of this and go, oh, look, I have 30 mites, I'm in big trouble. Or I have 3 mites I should treat, but I'm at a good threshold. 3 mites in here is pretty typical. If you see more than that, then that's when you start becoming alarmed. But I do stick to an integrated pest management cycle. So I treat whether or not I see mites in here because I know that they are here. I may have just missed them in my sample. Let's see. Personally, I only use natural mite controls, naturally derived. I don't use any of the heavy chemicals like Apivar. I use Apiguard, which is a thymol base. This is actually from the thyme plant. Doesn't mean that it is safe for you to be consuming. It just means that it has been derived from the thyme plant. It has been concentrated to the point that it is now medicine instead of an herb. Hopguard is incredibly messy to use, but for backyard beekeepers, it's definitely something you can consider. It's easy to use, it's pretty safe. It is from the hop plant. So we enjoy beer, then we can treat our bees with it too. Formic Pro is derived from formic acid, which is a common acid found in ants. It's what makes them smell bad. Honeybees have formic acid in them as well. We even have a little bit in our bodies. So it's a very common acid that's found all over the place. It smells really bad in high concentrations. Use a variety of treatments and practices to limit varroa. You can use your drone frames. You can use good feeding, including supplements like Pro Health in your sugar syrup. You can reduce drift. If you have honeybees coming and going from multiple different hives, they're trading all of these diseases and parasites. So if you pattern or paint the entrance to your hive, honeybees will know, oh, this is my house. It has 3 lines going down. Or this is my house. It has the 2 circles in the square. They can tell different patterns and different colors with the exception of red. So giving them an obvious entrance to their colony is going to reduce drift back and forth. Remove any drone comb that you see. Make sure that the mites don't have that drone vector to reproduce. Effective monitoring can help. If you know you have a mite problem, you can increase your treatments. Keep to an integrated treatment schedule. These are really loose guidelines that are provided. It will change season to season. Maybe you'll treat in very early spring because you've got really good weather. Maybe you won't be able to treat because it's raining solid through March. But you should be treating in spring after installation of a new colony as temperature allows. In August, as soon as you take your honey supers off, you should treat directly after honey harvest. You can't really treat when you have honey supers on. You don't want to be eating any of the mite medication. So the moment you get those honey supers off, you're going to treat. And then that allows you, if you treat August 1st through 15th, that's going to allow you another treatment in October before winter sets in. And this is when your mite populations are greatest, is in the fall. So if you can get 2 treatments in fall, you're looking pretty good for winter. This is optional. I don't actually use oxalic acid because it requires just so much extra personal protective equipment and all this other stuff. But oxalic acid is a really great treatment for winter during broodless winter periods. It will not get through wax cappings, but you can use an oxalic dribble or you can use an oxalic fumigation method. And that can be used midwinter. Even though you can't open the colony, you can still fumigate them with oxalic acid. Managing varroa. So keep your colony healthy, keep your colony large. You want to continue feeding sugar syrup when you do not have a honey super on. Continue feeding protein throughout the year. Make up for any nectar dearth in midsummer. When resources are low, continue feeding. Fit bees are less likely to be afflicted by mites. Some supplements can help, like Pro Health in your sugar syrup. There's not a whole lot of scientific evidence behind it, but a lot of beekeepers will swear by this and they continue to feed with their sugar syrup. Pro Health also has the benefit of making your sugar syrup last longer before it goes sour. Control your mites after installation, before honey flow, after honey flow, and before winter cluster forms. Alternate mite treatments depending on certain considerations. Temperature is a massive consideration when you are treating. So consider that daytime temperature should be between 60 and 105 degrees. This is a wonderful summer treatment. Your formic acid can be used when it is cooler, so 50 to 84 degrees. If you throw formic acid on in July and it's 105 degrees, you're going to kill your brood, you're going to kill your queen, you're just going to do way more harm than good. So keep within those temperature parameters and you will get a good mite kill and you will not negatively affect your colony in using it. Hop guard, hot beta acids, 50 to 92 degrees, and oxalic acid can be used basically any time of year, but it's not as effective when there is brood in the colony. So it's a really great winter treatment. So in conclusion here, disease prevention is far easier than disease treatment. Keep a robust, healthy colony, and you won't have as many issues with these diseases. Learn to read your hive, conduct consistent inspections, understand what's going on with your colony, how it is changing, and if it's changing in a positive or a negative way. Take regular notes and look at those notes. Great, it's April 27th today. Go back through your notebook and look at April 27th of the last year. Where are you and where should you be? It takes a couple of years to really get into the swing of things, but then you'll understand what is normal, what isn't normal, and you'll really kind of get a feel for what your colony should be experiencing. Note that many of these issues affect not only your hive, but colonies within a 3-mile radius of you. So be a good neighbor and consider that your other neighbors may not be good neighbors. So kind of goes both ways there. I do offer local in-hive consultations within a 10-mile radius of the garden center. They are an hour and a half long, so we can get in, we can do hive inspections, we can do mite tests, we can do mite treatments, anything that you have questions or concerns about. And I am always available via email, whether or not you would like the consult. You can reach me in store as well. All right, thanks everybody for putting up with me.
Thank you so much.
And I'd like to open it up for questions. Does anyone in Zoom or in person have questions? Ooh, actually a good question in chat right here. How soon should you treat mites with a nuke? So that's a really good question. Once you get your nuke installed, you want to ensure that the colony is happy with their new home. You've upset them, you've moved them, they've been confused by transport. Install the nuke, feed the nuke with sugar syrup and with protein supplement, and kind of let them orient to their new home, figure out where they are, start doing some foraging, start drawing some comb. When you get a nuke, depending on what you're treating with, you want to wait probably 2 weeks or so. When you first get your nuke, you have 5 frames of bees. When you're using formic acid, the minimum colony size is 6 frames. So they need to at least move on to the 6th frame and have 6 frames full of honeybees bringing active resources in. If you treat and they're too small, you can have queen loss, you can have brood loss. So you really want to make sure that that colony has begun to grow before you start treating with formic acid. So that's probably 2 or 3 weeks. Do we have any other questions?
I'm just curious about the mite board. So you say you only put it in for 3 days and then you pull it out and then you check. How often then are you cycling through to do
Okay.
that check?
So that's a good question. When you're using a mite board, how often do you check? So when I use a mite board, I will check before I do my mite treatment to see what my mite levels currently are at. So I'll insert the mite board for 3 days with a little bit of cooking spray on it so it doesn't flow away in the wind. I will count the mites on that board. Let's say it's been 3 days. We're going to say if we find 3 mites on there, we're at our threshold. We're somewhere around 3% mite population. That's when we should treat. When you insert your treatment, the mite board is out. You've cleaned it off. You put it in the garage. When you are done with your treatment, you'll insert that mite board in again and do the same thing. Wait 3 days, see what's going on. Hopefully you have fewer mites on that board than when you first did your treatment. If you have more, you probably need to treat again. Not all treatments are efficient. Sometimes you'll have something that's been sitting in your garage for a little while, maybe it's expired, maybe the heat has done something to it. Sometimes treatments simply aren't effective, so that's why it's important to look at your mite board before and after a treatment. So this is probably 3 or 4 times a year that you're doing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think I've got time for one more question. All right, I think I'm going to call it there. Thanks everyone for joining me, and I'm always available via email or at the store. Thank you.